9 times out of 10, if you got bowled past the linebackers, it was time to go drink some Gatorade after a field goal.
How excited are you for Antonio Pierce to get this opportunity as the head coach?
Morale, enthusiasm, everything picked up under Antonio Pierce. I heard through the grapevine that I was going to become a free agent. Everything wasn't wireless back then. So the offensive line coach, I was standing over there holding his cord.
What was Al like? I mean, he was just a Godfather type guy.
Tell him Al Davis said,
Welcome back, everybody, to the Raider D podcast. I have an amazing special guest, a Super Bowl champion left tackle, former Las Vegas, or should we say Los Angeles
Raider.
Raiders, since we travel so well. We're all over the place. Won a Super Bowl ring with the Green Bay Packers, unfortunately not with the Raiders, but we are happy that he did get a ring because he is deserving of it. Big Bruce Wilkerson up in the house. Thank you so much, Bruce, for joining the podcast today. How are you, my man?
I'm doing good, man. Thank y'all for having me. It's been a while trying to hook up, but I'm glad we finally got together.
Of course, I got my main man, the hot Beavers up in here from RaiderNation Hotspot. Welcome in, brother. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, man. I'm in the room with a legend, so couldn't be better.
So not only a legend on the football field, but just a great human being. We know in our circle that know you, and that's how we got connected together. And I've heard just nothing but good things about you. And we've had a conversation before when we first met. And I got to say, man, Bruce, it's so much fun talking to you. I'm excited that we have this opportunity to do it on the podcast. One of my goals here is to show the Raider Nation football fans in the world the other side of a star football player, somebody who's gone to the highest levels, the human side of it. And that's what I think is really important. So I want to just kind of delve into a little bit on, who is Bruce as the person. Now, I know you're from Tennessee. You went to the Tennessee Volunteers for college, and then you got drafted by the Raiders by Big Al Davis. What was it like growing up there in Tennessee? And did you ever expect to play football at such a high level or even at all?
Well, man, I don't know if I expected it. I heard all these stories about how good my dad was back, during segregated schools in East Tennessee. So as we went through our Baptist Association and we went around to different churches from lower East Tennessee up until about Knoxville, people would always come up to me and say, "Are you going to be as good as your dad? Are you going to be as good as your dad?" So I tried to play Pee-wee football. And, trying to play Pee-wee football in a little small town, I went out. But back then they had a weight limit. So I was old enough to be on the first team, but big enough to be on the third team. And then so I started practicing with the second team. But by the time the game started, I was big enough to be on the fourth team, which had 7th, 8th graders and freshmen in high school. So it was really something different to be sitting in a Plymouth Flurry with a plastic bag over my head with some arms cut out, with the heater on, trying to make weight limits so I could play on the third team because I was big enough, but my mind wasn't really ready. So I didn't really get to play football until I got in high school. Yeah. But I mean, that's what got me into it is, people coming up just asking me that question. And, when I finally got to high school, I was like, oh, man, I finally get a chance to play with my friends somewhere outside of sandlot football in the park.
You talked about your dad playing football in segregated schools in Tennessee back in the day. That's one of the things I love about football and what football has really brought to bear. I mean, the civil rights movement and everything that this country has been through and continues to go through to this day. One of the great things about football is it's a unifying factor. right? Unless you're like fans of an opposing team, but it doesn't matter. You just hate the fans of the opposing team. Doesn't matter what color they are. You just hate
Yes.
them, like Kansas City Chiefs, right?
Well, I mean, you take a football team. There's 60 some odd different guys from different backgrounds and everything else. But a team that's going to come together and gel, everybody cares for everybody. Everybody loves everybody. And if you don't, then you've got indecision and not really that unity that it takes to win football games. That's part of it is, brotherhood. I
Yeah.
mean, my Raider brothers, I mean, when I get together with some of them, I mean, it's like we haven't missed any time because it's so easy to catch back up.
So then you go from high school. Did you think that you would play football at university level, or did you think that you'd go on? Because I know your nickname is Big Country,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, I
So
mean, I had big country. I stuttered. Some people called me Elmer Fudd. And then when I got to the Raiders, it kind of got shortened to Fudd Drop. It just, I probably had 1,000 nicknames over the dang year. But
yeah,
big country kind of stuff. Uh, I started getting
That's how,
recruited as a freshman in high school by Tennessee State University out of Nashville. Was the first school that ever sent me anything. So then by the time I became a junior in high school, all of your big schools, they were kind of recruiting me, which, Tennessee was one of them schools where, in the area, everything's orange and white. We raised tobacco at the time. So the radio on the fender of the tractor, would have the Tennessee game on, and Tennessee had on the tearaway jerseys then. So everybody ran out of their jersey when they was trying to tackle them. So
yeah.
that was the whole big thing. I got recruited by some fairly big schools, but I mean, I decided to stay close to home.
So did you play left tackle or offensive line? Did you play any other positions in high school?
And in high school, I played defensive tackle
Oh, okay.
along with offensive tackle. I played
Yeah.
tackle on both sides of the ball. My high school was a double-A high school, and we had probably 27, 28 guys on the team. I remember once that we went and scrimmaged a 4A school, and that they asked us to kind of move back so they could get all of their players on the field so they could stretch. And I remember my high school coach at the time, he's kind of like, they can only put 11 guys on the field, so put your eyes back in your head and let's get ready to play a football game.
yeah, just you want to tell us kind of about some key moments from your time there at Tennessee, some stuff that kind of sticks out for you during your college career, kind of big moments.
Stuff that sticks out for me is, I was in the class that came in and we beat Alabama for the first time. And it was over 10 years that we hadn't beat Alabama up at Neyland Stadium. And, that they tore the goalpost up and they walked the goalpost on a down Cumberland. I was part of a team for destiny. They call it the Sugar Vols, where we beat the University of Miami. They were ranked #2 in the Sugar Bowl that year, and then just being around some real good coaches and some real good influences there at the time. I really love my experience as a volunteer. I mean, even up to this day, I mean, we have a fundraiser. Charles Davis, that's worked for CBS and NFL Network, he came in and sort of like did a question and answer at it. And, we probably had 12 former guys from that 1985 team to show up. And, it was just like we hadn't missed a beat, man. You just, that,
Cool.
like I say, I didn't realize it until after winning the Super Bowl, what it takes to be a champion. You got to be good and you got to be lucky. And then you've got to have everybody from the water boy to the head coach to the GM pulling for the same goal.
What is it? What was it like to play on like the biggest stage?
Well, I mean, I thought I missed it, man. I mean, here I was in Jacksonville, and I could have been in Green Bay, and Green Bay was playing the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game, and I'm sitting there saying, "Wow, man, hey." I missed out on the opportunity to play in the Super Bowl because I was afraid of a little bit of cold weather, just because I didn't want my fingers and my toes to be freezing, you know. So you look on it and you say, "Dang, okay, hey, I'm in Jayville, and Tom Coughlin, you know, Tom Coughlin is a football smart guy. I mean, extremely football smart guy. But I mean, he was developing how to deal with young men in the NFL versus young men in college. That was his first year coaching. So he had to learn how to deal with guys at the next level. And I think after he did, he won 2 Super Bowls. At that point in my career, you know, my body's beat up. I'm playing against guys on knowledge of the game because I mean, your physical athletic ability is dwindling. So I go to Green Bay. I'm an insurance policy. So at the first of the season, I'm the most expensive and a cord holding player in the NFL. And what I mean by cord holding, everything wasn't wireless back then. So the offensive line coach named Tom Lovat, I was standing over there holding his cord up and down the sideline on the field, just pulling his cord. Now we get about a quarter of the way in the season and somebody gets hurt. So I come in and I play a couple of games while they're rehabbing. Then I kind of go back to my insurance policy thing where I'm standing over on the sideline again. Somebody on the other side of the ball gets hurt. I go in and play a couple of games there. Then down the stretch, tried a couple of young guys to play. Ex-Raider teammate and a teammate in Green Bay, Sean Jones, said, well, the best guy that you can play is over on the sideline. So just give him a shot. So it was the last game of the season. They gave me a shot to come in and play left tackle. And I did a decent job. So then it was my job all the way through the playoffs, kind of playing our way all the way to the Super Bowl.
That's 10 years of some pretty physical abuse on your body playing in the NFL.
We used to hit a lot in practice and in the game. So, you know, you really had that physical toll on your body.
Yeah.
So you felt like, you know, this is your shot. You're gonna take it. You're gonna get out there and give it your all, and then you win. Like you guys are hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. What does that feel like?
Man, it's awesome. I mean, I tell people both those games was in New Orleans. You know, the Sugar Vols beat Miami in New Orleans when we didn't have a chance to win the game, and then to be back in that same city with the Packers and actually winning a Super Bowl in New Orleans. So I've won 2 championship games in the Superdome. And, you know,
that's awesome.
I'm gonna forever be fond of etouffee and gumbo and, you know, oyster poor boys and all that stuff, because, you know, it was a real good time down there each time.
Yeah.
What's your favorite quarterback that you've played with?
Favorite quarterback that I played with? I mean, you look at it, I mean, guys is kind of different. I mean, I played with quite a few. I would say right now, the top that I played with is Brett Favre, because he's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But I mean, I played with Steve Berline. I played with Mark Brunell down in Jacksonville that year. I played with Jay Schrader. I played with Jeff Hostetler. I played with Russ. You know, I mean, if you look at it on that Super Bowl team, Jimmy Mack was on that team. Doug Peterson was on that team. So, you know, there's a lot of guys that just brought different things to the game. But, you know, it was just great with all of them. But I think the only one in the Hall of Fame is Favre.
Seems to be a bit of a character. Was he like that in the locker room, or was he like, you know, kind of all business kind of guy? Or who was the funnest quarterback?
Man. I mean, Favre was probably by far the, you know, by far the most relaxed on the field, most relaxed in the huddle, just laid back gunslinger. I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I would say not the most X's and O's guys, but on the football field and do anything it takes to win. Yeah, I'd say it'd have to be him.
And you played with my all-time favorite running back in Bo Jackson. Yeah, we talked about that before. I mean, Bo was kind of like, walking, breathing video game out there on the field. None have ever really, kind of come to match him. Like, he's always been that one-of-a-kind guy. Short career, but amazing. How fast was Bo really? I mean, people say he's faster than Deion Sanders.
I don't know if he was faster than Deion Sanders. All I know is 9 times out of 10, if you got Bo past the linebackers, it was time to go drink some Gatorade after a field goal. Yeah. So I mean, that's what we would look for as an offensive line. You'd sit there and say, if we can get him into the secondary, odds are, I know we'll be going over to the sideline, to drink a little bit of Gatorade. I mean, Bo was just so explosive. So put that foot in the ground and just hit it. And hit it hard. I mean, and people don't realize that there's guys out there doing that, but there's not guys out there that has Bo Jackson's size that were running that fast right now.
Well, he ran a 4.19 from what I read.
Yeah,
4.19 at 230 pounds.
Yeah, at 230. Yeah, that's
he ran a 4.16 in pads in college. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah. That's why I said, because I mean, we talk about these kids these days that they're running a 4.33 and like they weigh 187 pounds, and we're like, oh, they got blazing speed. Like, no, blazing speed was Bo Jackson at 230.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I said there's never been another one like him. I don't know if in our lifetime we'll see another Bo Jackson.
I mean, you can sit there and just close your eyes and say, man, if Bo never got hurt, I mean, how many records would he break? I mean, if he never got hurt, I mean, how soon would he got his gold jacket? I mean, that's just a lot of remarkable things just to look at it and say, wow.
You got drafted by the Raiders.
The Raiders called me on the phone and told me they were going to draft me. They were going to draft me in the first round if I think it was either 2 or 3 other guys got picked. It was a linebacker from Duke, Junkins, a linebacker from Duke, offensive tackle John Clay, and so I was like, I think 3rd on their board. So they ended up drafting John in the first round. So then they had me on the phone telling me, well, I know we're going to draft you in the 2nd round. So then when the pick came around, they kind of traded, Buck traded down. And I'm like, wait, whoa, what? So they traded down. And, I mean, luckily, I was still available. So I was like, wow, I'm still going to where I wanted to go. I mean, when I was a kid coming up back here in East Tennessee, that 4:00 game pretty much was 8 times out of 10 going to be the silver and black playing somebody. So, it was a pretty good fan base back here.
When was the first time you talked to Al Davis?
First time I talked to him I talked to Ron Wolf after I got drafted.
So right after? Did you meet it just on the phone or did you meet him in person?
No, I met him in person out in El Segundo.
Okay. What was he? Now, Al Davis has like this mystique. And the younger fans of football of the Raider Nation, a lot of them don't even really know a lot about Al Davis. They just know Mark Davis because that's what they've grown up with since Al's passing. What was Al like? I mean, he was just looked to him like no nonsense, like a Godfather type guy. Was he like that, or was he like total opposite of what he looks like on TV?
I mean, what he looks like on TV, that's his persona. I mean, everybody puts that there. I mean, Al was a guy, once a Raider, always a Raider. But if he brought you to the Raiders, then you were supposed to be great. He had the attitude of my way. I mean, it's gonna be my way. That persona, that him standing on the sideline in the white suit. I mean, that would be at practice, and somehow he could see everything going on at practice, or he had enough people talking to him where if someone made a mistake on field 2, then boom, and he's standing over on field 1, he could comment on it, when he saw you.
You were with the Raiders in that final season in Los Angeles before they made the move. So you were there for the announcement. How did that affect the team? How did it affect you personally? And how did you find out that was going to go down?
I mean, they were talking about it all the whole year before. So then when we actually played that season, I think the last game of the year was the San Diego Chargers and the Los Angeles Raiders, and it was shocking because I actually. I heard through the grapevine that I was going to become a free agent. When I was leaving the stadium, I actually took my jersey off and I gave it to fans at the game. I mean, LA Coliseum, a lot of people think that it was just a rough place to play. But I mean, the fans there, to me, were some of the greatest fans in football.
Yeah.
And, they would follow you all over. I mean, San Diego was like a home game. I mean, if we came up and played the Niners during the preseason, you had that Oakland crowd. I mean, wow. I mean, if you went to Kansas City, I know you had a decent crowd, but it was all Raider haters. If you were in Seattle, I know you had a decent crowd, but the other side was Raider haters. If you was in Denver, the other side would be Raider haters. So
you played for the Raiders, you played for Jacksonville for a year, you played for the Packers. Who has the best fan base? I already know the answer.
Best fan base? Oh, man. Silver and black, baby. I mean, I'm going to tell people, Jacksonville was just getting started when I got there.
It's just different with the Raider Nation. And I think part of that is the fact that we call ourselves the Raider Nation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like one unified fan base that all comes together regardless of where you're from, whether you're rich or you're poor, whether you're famous or not. Whether you're white, black, Mexican, Latino, doesn't matter.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, man. I've never tailgated in Vegas, so I don't know how it is. I know Los Angeles tailgated right, too, all right there around the players' entrance coming out, across the street from the players' entrance, that parking lot tailgated. I went to Oakland. After I was done playing, went up for a game, and we kind of brought a Raider truck up there to Oakland. A buddy of mine, Tom Koch, had a Raider truck done, and we brought it up there and showing it off. And I tailgated in the parking lot, man. And you talking about, I ate food probably from every country in the world going around that stadium, and people was just like, hey, man, try some of this, try some of that, man. So that's exactly right what you said, that it's a melting pot. It's a culture. I mean, it's not just one, it's not just the other. Is many different cultures support the Silver and Black Nation, man. And Raider Nation is strong.
And speaking of that, is that the Silver and Black Nation T-shirt you got on?
Yeah.
From the Facebook
Silver
group.
And Black. I finally hooked up with Tom today. He's been trying to hook up with me for about the past 4 days. He's like, hey, man, come on by. So me and him finally hooked up at around 3:00 today.
So that's big Bill Lean and Jimmy over there. We're the podcast for the Facebook group. Anybody that doesn't know that, Silver and Black Nation Facebook group, it is one of the biggest Raiders Facebook groups, very well run. We keep all the scammers out, and got their own T-shirts for the group that we're going to be doing a charity for the Blitnikoff Foundation. All the proceeds will be going to that. So that's why I asked. I seen that on just a second ago. Yeah. Silver and Black Nation Facebook group. Guys, go check it out. You got to get on it. It is live over there. We'll be getting thousands of posts. You're retired now, obviously, but you're not retired. Like you're a very busy man. So a lot of people think that, you retire from football and then, I don't know, you just go fishing all the time, but you work full-time job, you got cattle, you got like just a full schedule all day. What is that like?
Most people say that my dad and all of his brothers were real big workers. So they're like, it's in his blood. I mean, it's in his blood. And I don't know if it's in my blood or whatever, but I don't know if my body can take it much longer because, it's very tiresome. But I am a machinist for Arconic Corporation, and I do raise beef cattle, and I sell some farm raised beef. So I mean, that's basically what I do now. I've got grandkids. I'm on yards. I'm kind of a jack of all trades. So I
Yeah.
mean, uh, if I can't do it, then I can hire somebody or get somebody too. But 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna try first, no matter what it is. So I don't know if that's that hillbilly in me or that's in my DNA because my father and uncle both farmed and worked regular jobs. I had another uncle that had a regular job, but then he also was an appliance, air conditioning, refrigeration service guy. So I grew up kind of in a family that everybody had a side hustle.
Yeah.
So now the way I look at this is, I play pro football. That was my main hustle, and now out of these next two things is my side hustle. Hopefully,
Yeah.
in a couple of years, I'm dropping that a machinist thing, and all I'm doing is piddling it down around on the farm.
So how many cattle do you have now?
Cows, calves, and all, probably 90 plus. I've got too many for one man. So
Yeah.
I need to kind of sell down to about 15 or 16
Yeah.
and and build back again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just turning into where it's eating up all my free time.
You had a very long, distinguished career. How does the toll on your body? How did that take an effect on you?
Well, I mean, if you X-ray my upper spine and my lower spine, you'll say, "Well, aren't you in a lot of pain?" One of the things, about 4 years ago, walking on the farm or walking through the woods, I mean, I was just about to trip over everything. And, I needed knee replacements, and they had been telling me that I needed knee replacements probably for about 12 years. And I finally got to the point of to where I was like, well, hell, I can't stand up. So I can't walk through the woods without falling down. So I finally started, and I got a knee replaced, and then a year later, I actually had my other knee replaced. So I kind of go through some a massage therapy, some they call it a stretch fusion. It's really a fascia stretch, and that kind of helps me. I see a chiropractor regularly. So I mean, all of this stuff is stuff that it seems like I've got to do to keep my body going.
And those injuries, they all came from football?
Yeah, basically. I
Yeah.
mean, you can say that some things are hereditary or that run in your family, but knees, hips, hands, elbows, shoulders, just certain, my neck, just certain things, it's inevitable. If you play long enough, it's going to catch up with you.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to get to. I know a lot of former players, post 10, 15 years after their career, you hear a lot of these stories of knee replacements and shoulder surgeries. So, I mean, a lot of post players from the NFL. Is that like really common that, something that players nowadays should be thinking about in their future that, yeah, this is probably going to be me?
Yeah, I mean, it's very common, but like anything else, man, it's a mindset. And most football players, on average, I mean, I don't know about now, but back when I played, on average, most football players had that mindset that there's a difference, but between a little bit of pain and injury. So pain's
Hmm.
something that we can fix after the season. Injury's something that we got to fix right now.
Yeah.
So you can kind of grit your teeth, and I know you learn how to deal with ice pack, heat pad, and make it through a day, or make it through a practice, or make it through a game. So that's kind of instilled in your DNA if you played football. So that right there, to me, has helped me the most with it. I mean, I normally try to deal with things my own way as long as I can, and then when I get to where I can't deal with it, then all of a sudden it's off to the doctor.
Does the NFL have any compensation medically for players?
It's getting better.
Is
It's
it?
getting better. I mean, each year the union, former players union, we really don't have a big voice, but there's a voice. So there's some things that that they're getting better at. So I mean, look at it. I mean, a lot of people compare. I mean, I work for Arconic. Now look at what they do for their employees after they're done. So if you compare, the NFL's doing a pretty decent job. If you
Yeah.
compare the real world to the sports world,
Yeah.
even though it's a whole lot different in the money you make, but if you just compare, taking care of, I mean, they do a decent job.
Kind of going down that same track, what advice would you give to all the upcoming football players that want to try to make it to the NFL? Like, what's the one thing they should listen to or focus on?
I think up and coming football players. First of all, it's going to be based on athletic ability. Then it's going to be determination. But the one thing that you should focus on is technique. Understand the fundamentals of football. Technique, technique, technique. I mean, angles, body position, head placement, hand placement. All of those things come into play. Now, guys are showing that they can practice all of those things without the contact and still put a good
Mm-hmm.
product on the field on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so technique, 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 because there's always going to be somebody as big as you are, and as strong as you are, and as athletic as you are. And the way you beat that is not understanding and knowledge of the game, or understanding and knowledge of the offense that you're running, or understanding and knowledge of the defense that you're running.
I know we had talked about it a little bit before, touching on that point of the different schemes and how the NFL has really changed over the years since you were a player. Like you were talking about before when we were talking that when you were with the Raiders, it's quite often it's a 7-step drop back for the quarterback, which means that the offensive lineman has to hold their blocks longer,
Yep.
versus a quarterback that's going to maybe be more mobile and get out of the pocket quicker, or a quicker release if they're running that West Coast offense, which is what they were running in Green Bay, right? When you went to Green
Yep.
Bay.
Yep, yep. I mean, 5-step drop, 3-step drop. I mean, the ball's coming out on time, so you're really not holding the ball, waiting to get that deep route down the field. And most of the time when we were there, if it was a 7-step drop, 8 times out of 10, it was going to be a play action pass, or it was going to be in some ridiculous third and long situation that there's not a whole lot of chance that you're going to convert.
Yeah.
So do you think the trend towards more mobile quarterbacks is here to stay, or do you think it's more of a kind of just a trendy fad right now, and we're going to go back to more traditional quarterbacks in the future?
Well, to me, the only way we're going to get back to more traditional quarterbacks, from the past is if college starts playing ball like that again. Because I mean, all of these quarterbacks come up from college. So as long as college is keep trending towards the mobile quarterback. The NFL has no choice but to go along with it. I mean, and the game has changed where if you look at it, man, I mean, games are decided by what? 7 points. The majority of the games, I mean, if there's a game that's not decided by 3 to 7 points, then something happened there at the end of the game, and some team got up 10 or some team got up 14 or 17, but it was right there close. I mean, the league is designed for teams to score points.
I mean, there is always the off game where, like last year where the Raiders put up, how much was that again? 63 points on the Chargers?
Yeah.
It was 63 points. That's correct.
That was 63 against the Chargers.
That was a nice occasion at the Smoky Mountain Raider Booster Club at Mr. Tom Cope's house.
Yes, sir. I bet it was. I bet it was live.
Everybody was sky high.
Oh, yeah. I think that game, and then obviously beating KC in KC on Christmas Day is what solidified Antonio Pierce's job. How excited are you for Antonio Pierce to get this opportunity as the head coach? And do you think that his style of coaching is what is needed for this team?
I mean, his style of coaching is, what I see from the outside looking in. So I would really have to be at practice and all that stuff to see. But the team is responding to Antonio Pierce. So, that's what you got to look into. The guys on the field were responding to Antonio Pierce. As before, the guys on the field were responding to, what was it, Rich
Bisaccia, Rich Bisaccia.
So that's what you take into consideration is, who can pull the best out of these guys that I got on the field.
Yeah.
And from what I saw last year, he did a good. I mean, morale, enthusiasm, everything picked up under Antonio Pierce. So I'm very happy for him to be able to get the shot to come in, and from everything that I hear about him, I mean, he was a true professional when he was a player. And, I mean, hopefully he'll be a true professional as a coach, and he'll lead us back into that physical, hard-nosed, tough, winning football that the Silver and Black's known for.
Yeah. That, like you were touching on earlier, that, in order for a team to win in the NFL, everybody from the water boy to the head coach all have to be moving in the right direction. They all have to be pulling together. And I think that Antonio Pierce is one of those guys who he's like a giant magnet, and everybody's just attracted to him, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really what the team needed, because under, with all of the controversy of John Gruden having to resign, Rich Bisaccia not getting the job when everybody wanted him to get the job, and then McDaniels coming in, and that was just, a train wreck. And the team, it seemed like last year, had just completely given up. And then Antonio Pierce comes in, and everybody's just all of a sudden Energizer Bunny and juiced up and ready to go. I think that's, in today's NFL, you need a coach who can relate to these players. And the old outdated coaching of the Belichick eras, which worked really well during his heyday. Yeah. But for these players nowadays, I mean, they're already coming to the NFL with money in their pocket thanks to the NIL. Yep. So it's a lot harder to just, be a dictator and tell them what to do. You have to be able to reach them to their inner core, and I think that's guys like Antonio Pierce can really do that and excel. Now, we'll see if that translates into wins, but I'm extraordinarily hopeful this year than I have been in many years that we are going to not only win, we're going to be a pretty dominant team.
Yeah. Now, what makes that translate into wins is I've got a knack for getting everybody to pull together, but now I got to get the right Jimmys and Joes to pull together. I've got to have the right ingredients to make the award-winning pie.
Yeah.
So if I don't have the right ingredients, I may not be able to make the award-winning pie. So, a lot of times that's what people don't look at. They'll say, well, this coach got a shot and he was unsuccessful. Oh, well, he's getting another shot. He's a little better successful. Then maybe his third time he got a shot and he's real successful. And then, he was real successful because maybe he had better Jimmys and Joes. And that comes in the play. That's why I say from the top to the bottom, that's the coaches and the GMs, the people bringing players in, all working together to know what they're looking for to get that character that they want their football team to be.
So we got Aiden O'Connell, who's more of a traditional pocket quarterback.
Pocket quarterback, he's not the most mobile guy.
Yeah. And then we got Gardner Minshew, who's a wild cowboy out there. Apparently a wild cowboy in the locker room as well.
Well, I mean, that wild cowboy kind of takes the edge off.
Yeah.
Because, people can say what they want to say. I mean, if you're third and long and you're facing a kid from Dallas, 3rd and 13, and what's his name? The kid from Penn State. Parsons, Michael Parsons.
Oh, yeah.
And you're facing Michael Parsons now. When you're in the huddle, if you're not a Pro Bowler, I don't care what they say. I know you're thinking about, I got a beast over there on the Atlantic or down in the Gulf, the deep sea fishing for sharks, and they start throwing chub in the water, and the water's all bloody and stuff, and it's 3rd and 18, and these guys is over there laying their ears back. They not worried about draw. They ain't worried about run. All they worried about is a sack.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
So now, if that quarterback can come in there and just ease it just a little bit, that loosens you up just a little bit and takes a little bit of that tightness away.
So out of the two, who do you think's going to win the starting job?
I don't know. I mean, Minshu's got more experience. O'Donnell's got size, but on the mobility. I'm looking forward to see how it plays out. I mean, they're going to have to make a lot of evaluations. To me, to make a lot of evaluations in camp, because there's only 3 preseason games this year. But we pick up that extra regular season game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the big thing about that is
what do you think about the fact that there's over 30 players that have been in all off season working together, training? This team seems to have an exceptional amount of togetherness and work ethic. Have you ever seen that sort of thing before on a team? What do you think that means?
I think it's a good thing. Yeah. I mean, off-season workouts there at the facility, whatever. I think it's great. I can have my own personal dietitian or my own personal whatever, but all of these teams have this stuff now. The stuff is right there, easy for you to access. I mean, it would be hard, I'm thinking back in my day, you're like, hey, here we are in Vegas. I mean, it's going to be hard at 20 some odd years old to be like, all right, I'm an early morning workout guy. I'm living in Vegas. Like, wait a minute, what did we do last night? Yeah, so man, that's a good thing. And what that does is that camaraderie that we were talking about. See, we had something that was kind of unique to the Raiders. Every Thursday night was camaraderie night, restaurant, and pretty much you almost had 100% participation, and some guys would stay 30 minutes. Some guys might stay 3 hours, 4 hours, but it was just that getting to know each other, getting to know about each other's families and dogs and interests and things people dislike, whatever, that creates a closeness, just getting to know each other. And if we're close, I'm going to fight harder for somebody that's more like a family member than I am going to fight harder for somebody I just casually know. Even
Yeah.
though we're supposed to fight the same for each and everybody, but that
Mhm.
camaraderie, man, that right there, that starts the building of that closeness of that close knit team is to where you say, okay, the way it's always been said, offense wins 4 games, defense wins 4 games, special teams wins 4 games. That puts
Mhm.
us 12 and something. Odds are we're going to be in the playoffs. So that brings that
Wow.
closeness to when my brother's having a bad day. Well, guess what? I'm gonna pick it up and
Right.
pull us a win out.
That makes sense.
That's
Yeah.
the beautiful
Yeah.
thing about football versus like individual sports is really good. I grew up doing individual sports with wrestling, boxing, and MMA, and then I played football, and it's a totally different thing because you're relying on the person next to you. And I don't want to equate it to like warfare and soldiering. That's a different level of stuff, but it's the same premise of, look, if the guy next to me doesn't care about me and about us winning, it's going to be hard to win. But
Yeah,
when all
Yeah.
of you care about each other and all of you want to see each other win, that's when magnificent things happen out there on the football field. And I think that's why it's the greatest team sport out there, because it's not so much about the individual accolades, it's about getting to that Lombardi trophy.
and if you look at it, an old man put it this way a long time ago. He said, "A chain is only as strong as its weakest link." If you're all gelling together and you're all strengthening together over the off season, then when training camp comes around, that closeness is already there with 30 guys. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
50% of the team right there. That's
Yeah.
already close. So it's much
Mhm.
easier to bring that other 30% in than it is to be starting with only 10%.
A story I heard about Al, that he would help out former players who were financially struggling, even from different teams that weren't even Raiders, and then didn't talk about it, and then kind of
Yeah, I
came out
mean,
after he passed.
those were some of the secret things about Al that people didn't really know. I mean, it seemed like he could remember players, and I mean, I remember my first game out in Oakland, and you're coming off the floor, and I had friends with me, and the security guards like, hey, stop, hey, just whatever. And my friends are kind of like, well, do you know who he is? He played here, blah, blah, blah. I said, calm down, dude, calm down. And the guy come over and, he's talking to me. He's like, man, I'm sorry. And I said, somebody's getting ready to come down the hall. And I said, they told you to have nobody on the hall, right? And he said, yeah. I said, so if you've got somebody on the hall, I said, now you may lose your job. I said, so he said, so I know you really did play here. But and then when Al come down, because at the time he was being pushed in a wheelchair. And
Hmm.
I kind of always called Al Coach Davis. Hey, Coach Davis, how you doing? He gets that Al Davis way, and he's like, what the is Bruce Wilkerson doing out here in Oakland? Did you come to see family? And I said,
Oh
yeah,
wow.
I came back to see, but he couldn't see my face because I'm, around the corner. But he just heard my voice. And then he said, well, aren't you going to come over here where I can see you? Yeah, 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 yeah. So, that was just one of those. I'd been away from the Raiders for probably, even though I came back and retired, I hadn't been out there probably in maybe 5, 6 years or something. So, as many guys come through and somebody with Al's age, you're kind of thinking like, wow,
Hmm.
how in the heck did this man just remember my voice?
Yeah. Speaking of the Davises, I know Mark Davis gets a lot of crap in the media about his haircut and some of the decisions he makes. But what is the difference? I mean, how well did you know Mark, and what's kind of the difference between
Uh,
his style of ownership and Al's?
I think he's got his own style. I mean, hopefully he can bring it back to that winning tradition. And I mean, let's see what. And the Aces are winning. The hockey team's winning. I mean, and now it's time for the football team to go on
Yeah.
that run of just getting back in the winning ways. I mean, I mean, if it's not a championship right away, just get back in the hunt. You know what I'm saying? Year after year after year after year, just get back where it's a constant invitation to the party every year, and
Yeah.
and the party is the playoffs, and that's where you want to get to, and if you can't get to the party, then ain't nobody gonna let you dance.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, if you keep
You
going to dances, eventually you'll be the belle of the ball.
Yeah, hey,
So,
that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean unless you're the Buffalo Bills.
oh, oh! Shout out to my boy Devon,
Yeah,
the Bills
yeah.
fan,
Bills
in my
Mafia hates
neighborhood.
that. Do you still talk to any like Mark Davis or any of the former or current players or anything like that?
Not really the current players. I mean, if I need something, I wouldn't hesitate to pick up the phone and call Mark. I mean, because that connection is gonna always be there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a true statement. Once a Raider, always a Raider. And alumni weekends and stuff like that. I mean, they still try to do everything they can do to help us guys out down the line.
So he's still like um basically follow. I mean, he's different than his dad, obviously,
Yeah.
but I mean, he wears the jumpsuit jackets and stuff just like his dad. A lot of people get upset with Mark Davis with some of the decisions that he's made and stuff like that, and they even question whether or not he actually cares about the Raiders. You know him personally. What would you say to somebody who says that Mark Davis does not care about the Raiders?
I think he cares about the Raiders. I think he cares about winning. I mean, most guys put it on football experience.
Yeah.
But I mean, football's in his blood. So I mean, when I played, he was around, but he wasn't around all the time. So I'm sure that's what people's looking into is but it was his birthright to inherit the Raiders, run the organization, and now he's just got to bring them back to to prominence, or as Al would say, back to greatness.
Yeah, and I think he's made all the right moves this time. Definitely didn't like the McDaniels move. I thought
Right.
Bisaccia probably should have got that job, but I understand why he didn't give Bisaccia a job because that's a risk too.
It's football.
Yeah,
Everything's going to be a risk. A first round draft choice, I mean, it's a chance that he may pan out, he may not pan out. Hopefully, it does. I mean, that's part of that GM vetting, getting the culture that you want in your building.
So speaking of that, the
Yeah.
coach and the GM thing, when you were a player, did you have any coaches who were de facto also GM? I know under the
No,
Raiders,
no,
obviously Al Davis was the GM,
yeah.
but
Well, I mean, Al Davis was the ultimate GM.
yeah,
But when I was there, Ron Wolf was the GM.
yeah,
I mean, he's the same GM that brought me to the Packers, and I think from the time he was there, they won championships early on in his a career there. So I think that worked out pretty good. I mean, he was the GM in Green Bay, and we won championships up there. So I mean, to,
Mhm.
to me, that's a big part of it. I mean, and to be the head coach and the GM. I mean, that's awful hard to try to do
Yeah.
everything in an organization. I
yeah,
mean,
Mhm.
I'm doing everything from top to bottom. I mean, am I that much of a power guy that I've got to have it all? I mean,
yeah,
okay, now the owner is the ultimate power guy, but now I mean, I got to hire people that I know that are going to do good jobs and be
Mhm.
successful and be able to work together. the GM and the head coach have got to be able to work together.
I think that's a good thing that the Raiders are doing right now, and this is why I'm so hopeful, because for the first time in quite a while, we have an actual GM who has experience as a GM. I mean, we've had GMs in the past, but we have somebody who has 10 years under his belt as an active GM. And we have a coach who doesn't want to be a GM. He wants to be a coach. Yeah. And I think that's a perfect combination. I'll do me, you do you, get me the players I need. Let's go win some games.
Yeah. That's the bottom line.
You need those competing interests with, long-term vision, versus, win right now, and have those kind of that dynamic, brings the best out of the direction.
I mean, they got to be able to come to the table, sit down, and decide that this is the direction we want to go, and let's both work for that goal.
Tom Telesco even said in an interview when he was asked about it, he said, you know what, working with AP has been really easy because he's had a very focused goal in mind for what the Raiders need to be, how he sees how it needs to be, and it's made our job as the GM and the scouting staff and everybody else really easy because he's not changing it. It's just this is the goal, this is what we need. So
that's it.
Seems like they're working really well together. They've brought in some wonderful pieces. Just wanted to get your perspective because you are the resident expert on offensive linemen.
I don't know about an expert.
On the off.
What do you have? I know you got a chance to see a little bit of Zamir White. He looks like he's turned into an absolute monster with his offseason work.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can block for an explosive back, I mean, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky enough to block for some Marcus, Bo, Eric Dickerson.
I was going to say the three
Dorsey Levens.
Jesus.
Man, Edgar Bennett, as he's still coaching for the on the staff there. I mean, so, I mean, just explosive. Oh, I forgot Nasty Nap.
The preacher man.
And a cloud of dust from from Navy. Yeah, so I mean, Nick Bell, Greg Bell.
Yeah, I mean, you just named off like a whole bunch of some of the greatest running backs in the history of the NFL.
He goes Marcus Bo and Eric Dickerson.
Frank Hawkins, Steve Smith. I mean, there was some studs there.
Yeah. Who's the biggest personalities? Name some of the big personalities that you played with. Did you play with like Bill Romanowski? I know he's got a big
no, I didn't play with Romanowski. I mean, see, I remember when Romanowski was skinny. A lot of people don't remember that, and they'll be like, "Huh?" So I'm setting my age, but I would say personalities. I would say Jerry Robertson, and the JR was a big personality when I was, and I would say there was a bunch of personalities, but before I got there, whatever. Bob Golick was a big personality guy.
Who was your favorite coach to play for?
Art Shell.
Art Shell, the legend.
I mean, that's just, I mean, I wish I'd just been smarter. I wish I'd have been smart enough to have been saying, "Hey, buddy, how do I work for a gold jacket?" So just to look at it, to be coached by a Hall of Famer, the first African American head coach who was put in by Al Davis. It was an exciting thing, man. It made you want to go to war for a guy, a fellow African American, and I think he taught me the technique of the pro game and it kept me in the NFL for 12 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Because a lot of things he taught me, like that crossover step for a wide rush in and other things about you got to learn how to coach yourself on the field because if something bad happens, then I know you can't go all the crap, and you got to stay calm
Mm.
and focus. So yeah, yeah, I
Mm.
think that was a big part of me being in the league as as long as I was, just having that influence from such a great man first, and
Yeah.
a great football player and coach second.
Yeah.
You
Awesome.
end your very amazing career um, back with the Raiders. How does that work out? The for the people that don't know, how does a former Raiders player come back and retire as a Raider? What's that
Well,
process?
in my situation, I mean, I was going to end my last year with Green Bay, and we played in the American Bowl. We played Kansas City over in Japan, and I got rolled up on. So I separated my tib fib over there, and then
Mm.
the worst pain I ever had was flying back on that plane from Japan, flying back to Green Bay with that throbbing.
Yeah.
So I get
Mm.
back and I rehab the rest of training camp, but it still doesn't get right. So the Packers is like, well, we're going to give you an injury settlement, and if we need you, then we may call you in the middle of the year. So they gave me an injury settlement, and I'm down here. I brought a boat from a friend of mine, so I'm down here on Fort Loudon Lake fishing, and my wife calls and says, Ken Heron from the Raiders called you. And I said, yeah, that's just one of my ex-teammates playing a joke. So she told her to hang the phone up. So then about 20 minutes later, she calls again and says, Ken Heron is calling back again. I said, well, they're pretty persistent, ain't they, babe? I said, they're pretty persistent. So she hung the phone up on him again. So then the third time he called, he said, called back and said, tell him Al Davis says for him to call Ken Heron. So she calls me on the lake, and he hung up, and he left a number. And I
That's
said, well, I
good.
know the number to the Raiders facility. And then I said, okay, I'll call. So I called and asked to speak to Ken Heron. And it's like, said, I know we need a tackle to be a backup tackle. And we're bringing you and another guy. He was either 26 or 27 years old. So I said, just go to the airport and we'll have a thing. So I swing by the house and I tell my wife, I say, I'm gonna just take a backpack because I said, ain't no way that I can have a better workout than a 27-year-old because I was
Wow.
34 at the time, and it
Yeah.
was like, huh? So I said, I'm gonna fly out to Oakland. I said, I'll be back in a couple of days. So I fly out there, and then I end up staying. So it's kind of funny that that's what brought me back to the Raiders. And then Al kept saying, Are you glad you came home to retire?" And the more I thought about it, I was like, "Yeah, I'm glad I came home to retire."
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
That's a
Even
beautiful
though I'm
story.
a Los Angeles Raider, but
Yeah.
just coming back to the Raiders, even though they were in Oakland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter where we play.
No,
Oakland,
no,
LA, Vegas now. It's we home is where the team is.
yeah,
That's it.
that's
You
it.
know what I mean?
That's it.
So I
Silver and black is in your heart.
yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
Yeah.
really nice to see that we finally have a stadium that matches the heart of the Raiders,
right.
because the Raiders have deserved a nice stadium forever, and we just didn't get one, and now we finally
Mm.
have one. So now what we need to do is make sure that we win several Super Bowls
Yeah.
in our
Hey,
well, we won't win them in our stadium, but to put those trophies in the
well,
stadium as a Las Vegas Raiders, that's going to be something really special because um, that's home. That's home now for at least 30, 40 years.
well, I
Mhm.
mean, if you have the parade down the strip and it ends up in the stadium, hey, I don't see nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I
Yeah.
appreciate y'all having me, Kier. and Raider D, man, just
Yeah.
for the next 2 years. But if I'm still around in 2027, things should slow down. I hope. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be barefooted with a pair of overalls on, sitting on the front porch, sipping on some lemonade.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Man, that
I'm
sounds
gonna
good.
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna have
have
to come down and chill with you,
yeah, we're
bro.
gonna have
All
we're
right,
gonna have to
well, hey,
come
that's cool.
yeah, we're
You
gonna have to come
know,
down to
Yeah.
barbecue, man.
oh
Some of that
yeah,
prime
we'll
beef you
fire
got
up the
down there.
smoker.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
we can do swine or we can do beef.
Well,
Hey,
I don't know if you've seen behind me. I don't do the swine. I'm
he
Muslim.
doesn't do
All right,
the.
all right, all
But I
right,
do
all
the
right.
But
beef.
Beef,
I
all right.
do the
yeah,
It's
beef.
all good.
yeah, I can
Yes,
cook a little.
sir.
I'll bring some. We can
All
do
right.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can show us how to cook lamb, bro.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
all
yeah.
right, all
Let's
right,
do
all
it.
right.
Let's do it.
That's
That's a date. Let's do it.
all right, man.
for
Hey,
sure.
y'all have a good evening, man. Much love.
Appreciate
Awesome.
you.
Hey,
And to everybody
thank
watching,
you.
thank you so much to Big Bruce
Yes.
for taking the time to come to the Raider D
Awesome.
podcast, to my co-host, Kier Beavers, Hot Beavers from the RaiderNation Hotspot. Make sure you subscribe to his channel as well. And we'll see all of you guys in the next episode.